Vivian, it's been a year. I'm not getting any younger. We need to start a family now, or I'm done. I looked up from the pile of event proposals scattered across the coffee table, surprised by Brad's stern tone. You can't just put an expiration date on our marriage, Brad. He crossed his arms, his face set in a hard line. Why not? We agreed when we got married that we'd start a family. I'm tired of waiting. Agreed, I said, standing up, feeling the heat rise to my cheeks. We talked about it, sure, but I never agreed to a timeline. My career is important to me, and it should be to you too. He shook his head, frustration etched across his features. Priorities change, Vivian. I need a family now. If you can't give me that, then maybe we shouldn't be together at all. The room fell silent. The weight of his words pressed down on me, and I struggled to find a response. How had things come to this? We were supposed to be partners. I finally said, my voice quivering, "You can't just decide something this big without talking to me." Brad's gaze softened for a moment, but then he hardened again. I've already waited longer than I wanted to. It's time to make a decision. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. Are you saying you're going to leave me if I don't agree to have a child right now? He didn't answer immediately. The pause felt like an eternity. Yes, he said, his tone final. That's exactly what I'm saying. The silence between us was deafening. Tears stung at my eyes, but I blinked them back, refusing to let him see me cry. Fine, I whispered, each word dripping with pain. But you can't just walk away from this like it's nothing. Brad's face remained unreadable. I've made up my mind, Vivian. I'm sorry. Sorry, that was all he had to say. My chest tightened as I watched him grab his keys from the counter without another word. He walked out the door, the echo of his footsteps lingering long after he left. I sank to the couch, my head in my hands. The reality of the situation hit me full force. The man I thought I knew, the man I thought loved me unconditionally, had given me an ultimatum that shattered everything we built. I sat there, staring blankly at the door. The silence echoing all around me, Brad's words were played in my mind, each one cutting deeper than the last. We needed to start a family now, or he was done. There was no room for compromise, no space for understanding. My heart ached as I thought about the life we had planned together and how, in a single moment, it all came crashing down. As darkness fell outside, I realized I was alone, truly alone for the first time in years. And with that realization came a steely resolve I didn't know I had. I would survive this. I had to, for myself, if nothing else. I closed the door behind me, feeling the weight of the previous night's events. My vision blurred as tears threatened to escape. I couldn't stay in our apartment, my apartment now. I needed someone, anyone. I grabbed my phone and dialed Lisa's number. Vivian, what's wrong? Lisa's voice was warm and concerned. It's Brad. He left me. I choked out. Come over right now, she said without hesitation. I'll make some coffee. Within minutes, I found myself at Lisa's place. She opened the door and pulled me into a tight hug. I can't believe this, she whispered, leading me to the couch. I slumped down, my eyes scanning her cozy living room. He gave me an ultimatum, I said. Either we start a family immediately, or he's done. Lisa's eyes widened. What? That's insane. He's never mentioned anything about such a strict timeline. I shook my head. He sounded so final, like he didn't care about anything we had. Lisa sighed, handing me a steaming mug. Vivian, I have to tell you something. A couple of weeks ago, I saw Brad with another woman. My heart sank. What do you mean? They were at the coffee shop near my office. He was with Julia. I didn't think much of it at first, but they looked really close, too close, Lisa said carefully. I frowned. Julia from his office? Lisa nodded, biting her lip. I've been suspicious since then. Maybe he's been seeing her behind your back. The room fell into a heavy silence. The pieces were falling into place, and none of them fit right. So he was never really serious about us. He just wanted a family fast, and when I didn't fit his timeline, he moved on. Lisa reached out and squeezed my hand. It sure looks that way. I'm so sorry, Viv. The rage bubbling inside me blurred out the sadness, at least momentarily. I can't believe I didn't see it. All those nights late at the office, the mysterious phone calls. How did I miss the signs? Lisa shook her head. He's a master manipulator, Viv. He made you believe everything was okay when it wasn't. Well, I'm done being manipulated, I said, feeling a newfound determination. If he thinks he can walk all over me and just move on with Julia, he's got another thing coming. Lisa's grip tightened. That's the spirit, Viv. You deserve so much better than Brad. I nodded, feeling a spark reignite inside me. He doesn't get to win, not this time. We spent the rest of the morning talking about everything other than Brad. Each laugh and shared memory with Lisa was a small step toward reclaiming myself. The betrayal hurt deeply, but I refused to let it define me. When I finally left Lisa's place, I felt more resolute. I had friends who would stand by me, and that was enough for now. As for Brad, he'd chosen his path. Now I needed to forge mine, one step at a time. The charity event buzzed with conversation and laughter. For the first time in weeks, I felt a bit like my old self, mingling effortlessly. This evening was a distraction I desperately needed. Vivian Miller, a voice called out. I turned to see a tall man with dark hair and kind eyes approaching me. Alex Brown, he extended his hand. We met at the last fundraiser, right? I remembered him now. Alex was a graphic designer who had volunteered his time to help with the event. I shook his hand, feeling a surprising warmth. How are you? He asked, his tone genuine. Been better, honestly, I admitted. But I'm here, and that's something. He nodded, his eyes full of understanding. Sometimes just showing up is the hardest part. I'm glad you did. We moved to a quieter corner, talking about work, life, and the funny mishaps of past events. For the first time in a while, I felt seen, not as the woman scorned by Brad, but as Vivian, the resourceful event planner. What about you? I asked, sipping my wine. What brings you out tonight? Honestly, Alex smiled. I was hoping to bump into you. I enjoyed our last conversation. I laughed, the first genuine laugh in what felt like ages. Well, consider your mission accomplished. 6 months flew by, and Alex and I grew closer, spending countless evenings talking, laughing, and just being there for each other. He never pressured me, always letting me move at my own speed. One evening, over a quiet dinner at my place, Alex reached across the table and took my hand. Vivian, I love you, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Tears welled up in my eyes, not from sadness this time, but from overwhelming joy. Alex, I love you too. You've been through so much. He continued, his voice steady. I want you to know, whatever you decide about having children, we'll face it together. His words were like a balm for my wounded soul. Here was a man who truly cared, who accepted me for who I was, without conditions. Thank you, Alex. That means more than you'll ever know. He squeezed my hand. So, will you marry me, Vivian Miller? His eyes gleamed with hope and sincerity. Yes, I whispered, a smile spreading across my face. 1,000 times, yes. We embraced, our future suddenly filled with promise and warmth. Alex understood the importance of shared decisions, unlike Brad, who had tried to dictate every aspect of our lives. That night, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. As Alex and I planned our future together, I knew there would be challenges, but with him by my side, I felt ready to face anything. And this time, I wouldn't let anyone's ultimatums dictate my life. Together, we'd build our own path, one filled with trust, respect, and genuine love. The morning light streamed through the curtains as I woke up feeling a strange combination of nerves and excitement. I reached over and gently shook Alex. Hey, wake up, I said softly. He stirred, blinking sleepily at me. What's going on? I think I'm pregnant, I whispered, my voice catching slightly. Alex sat up, suddenly wide awake. Really? Are you sure? I nodded, showing him the positive test in my hand. I took the test this morning. A radiant smile spread across his face. Vivian, that's amazing. He pulled me into a tight embrace. We're going to have a baby. The next few weeks flew by in a whirlwind of doctor visits and planning. Every tiny milestone, from the first ultrasound to picking out nursery colors, felt like a dream. Alex was my rock, always there with a comforting word or a thoughtful gesture. One evening, as we were assembling the crib, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen and froze. It was Brad. My heart pounded as I answered. "What do you want, Brad?" "Vivian, I heard you're pregnant," he said, his voice dripping with disbelief. I felt a surge of anger. "That's none of your business." "It is my business," he snapped. "Are you sure you're even capable of having kids?" I clenched my fist. "Alex and I are expecting, and that's all that matters." "Why do you even care?" "Because," Brad hissed, "I need to know if it was me or you. I spent months thinking it was you who couldn't have kids. It was never about you. You were the problem all along, Brad. You and your need to control everything." There was a tense silence on the line before Brad spoke again, his tone softer but no less menacing. "You owe me the truth, Vivian." "No, Brad, I owe you nothing," I replied firmly. "I'm done with you. Don't call me again." I ended the call, my hands shaking with anger. Alex looked up from the crib, concern etched on his face. "Everything okay?" "Brad," I spat out. He had the nerve to question my pregnancy, my ability to have kids. Alex crossed the room and enveloped me in his arms. "Forget him, Vivian. You don't owe him anything. He's out of our lives." I nodded, taking comfort in Alex's steady presence. Brad wouldn't ruin this for me, not now. I had a new life to focus on, one filled with love and promise. With each passing day, Alex and I grew more excited about our future. We were determined to build a life free from Brad's toxicity. Our little family was everything I had ever dreamed of, and I wouldn't let anyone taint it. Preparing for our baby's arrival, I felt stronger and more determined. The shadows of my past with Brad seemed distant and insignificant compared to the bright future ahead of us. As we added the final touches to the nursery, Alex leaned in and kissed my forehead. "We're going to be amazing parents," he said, his voice full of conviction. I smiled, feeling his words ring true in my heart. "Yes, we are." And with that, I knew we were ready for whatever came next together. I was feeding our cat when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting visitors, especially at this hour. As I opened the door, I was taken aback to find Julia standing there, her eyes red and swollen. "Julia, what are you doing here?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "Vivian, can I come in? I really need to talk to you," she said, taking a shaky breath. "Sure," I said, stepping aside and waving her in. We sat down in the living room. Julia's hands trembled as she clutched her purse. "What's going on?" I asked, my curiosity piqued. "It's Brad," she said, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I'm pregnant, and he's been awful to me." My heart ached as she continued, remembering how manipulative Brad could be. "Julia, I'm so sorry," I said. "What has he done?" "He's been calling me worthless, doubting if the baby is even his," she sobbed. "His jealousy and distrust are suffocating. I don't know what to do." I reached out and took her hand, offering a comforting squeeze. "You deserved better. I dealt with the same abuse. It's not your fault, Julia. It's him." She looked up, her face a mixture of despair and anger. "I thought I could handle him, that he would change once I got pregnant, but it's just gotten worse. Believe me, I understand." I said, "Brad's obsessive need to control and his paranoia won't change. He did the same to me." Julia wiped her tears, her expression shifting from hopeless to determined. "I can't raise a child in this environment. I need to get out," she said. "Then do it," I urged her. "You and your baby deserve a life free from his toxicity." She nodded, taking a deep breath. "Thank you, Vivian. Hearing this from you gives me strength. I wasn't sure you'd even listen." "Of course I would," I said, squeezing her hand again. "We're connected through this twisted experience, and you're not alone." For a moment, we sat in silence, finding a strange sense of solidarity in our shared pain. "Have you talked to anyone else about this?" I asked. Julia shook her head. "No, you're the first person I've told." "Then we need a plan," I said firmly. "You should talk to a lawyer, find a safe place. There are resources that can help you." She nodded, resolve taking the place of fear in her eyes. I'll do that, she said. And thank you, Vivian. I needed someone to remind me I'm not crazy. I watched her leave, feeling a mixture of empathy and relief. As much as my history with Brad had scared me, I knew now that my experiences could help others. Later that evening, Alex came home and found me sitting quietly in the living room. "How was your day?" he asked, kissing my forehead. "Eventful," I replied. Julia came by. "Julia? What did she want?" he asked, surprised. "She's pregnant," I said, my voice low. "And Brad's treating her just as horribly as he treated me." Alex sighed, shaking his head. "He'll never change, will he?" "No," I agreed. "But maybe, just maybe, we can help Julia find a way out together." We decided to support Julia however we could. Brad's vile nature wouldn't destroy another life. Not if we had anything to say about it. And in fighting for Julia, I found a measure of redemption for my own past. About a week later, I met Julia at a cozy cafe downtown. She looked exhausted but resolute. Her hands fiddled with her coffee cup as she spoke. "Vivian, I've made up my mind." Her voice was steady. "I'm filing for divorce." I nodded, feeling proud of her courage. "Good, it's the right decision." There was something else she said, pausing to collect her thoughts. "Brad is adamant that the baby isn't his. He's demanding a paternity test." My jaw clenched. That's just like him. He doesn't want to face the fact that he could be the problem. Julia sighed. "I know, but I'm going to take the test anyway. I have nothing to hide." The paternity test came back a few days later, confirming that Brad was indeed the father. Julia called me, her voice trembling with a mix of relief and anger. "I knew it, Vivian. I knew it, but he's still being horrible. He accused me of manipulating the results." "Of course he did," I said, my blood boiling. "He can't accept reality." Julia took a deep breath. "I need to get out of this for good. I've already spoken to a lawyer. I'm filing the papers tomorrow." I felt a surge of admiration. "You're doing the right thing, Julia. Stay strong." The next day, Julia marched into the courthouse and filed for divorce. Her determination was inspiring. Brad, however, didn't take it well. He showed up at my door that evening, seething with rage. "Vivian," he shouted as I opened the door. "This is your doing, isn't it? You turned her against me." I stood my ground, refusing to back down. "Julia made her own decision, Brad. She deserves better than you." He stepped closer, his face twisted with fury. "You've always been against me, haven't you? Maybe if you weren't such a manipulative, abusive person, people wouldn't feel the need to leave you," I retorted. Brad stared at me, his anger palpable. "You think this is over? It's far from over." "Get off my property, Brad," I said, my voice calm but firm. "You're not welcome here." He glared at me for a moment longer before storming away. As I watched him leave, I felt a sense of closure wash over me. I wasn't afraid of him anymore. Later that night, Julia called. "Vivian, you won't believe this. Brad is spreading lies about you at his workplace, blaming you for the divorce and everything that's gone wrong in his life." I wasn't surprised. Typical Brad. He can't take responsibility for his own actions, Julia sighed. "But Lisa, your friend Lisa, she's on to him. She's ready to take action against him." "Lisa's a force to be reckoned with," I said, a small smile playing on my lips. Brad's finally going to face the consequences of his actions. Over the next few days, Lisa, a senior manager at Brad's company, exposed his unethical behavior and work-related misconduct. The evidence was irrefutable. Brad was demoted and ostracized at work, his reputation in tatters. The news brought a sense of poetic justice. Brad had tried to destroy those around him, but in the end, his own actions were his downfall. As Julia and I talked late into the night, we found solace in knowing that Brad's reign of terror was finally over. We had fought back, and we had won. And in that victory, we found a newfound strength to face whatever came next. Julia shook my hand firmly. Her eyes reflected a newfound determination. "I filed the divorce papers," she said resolutely. "No turning back now." I felt as well of pride. "You did the right thing, Julia. I'm here for you every step of the way." As the days passed, Brad's vitriol only grew. Rumors about me spread at a dizzying pace. Lisa, ever the loyal friend, called me one evening in a rage. Vivian, you wouldn't believe the lies Brad's telling at work. He's blaming you for every bad thing that's happened to him. It's despicable. I sighed. The familiar sting of betrayal hit me anew. Of course he is. He can't handle the reality of his own failures. Don't worry, Lisa said firmly. I've got something up my sleeve. That man won't get away with this. True to her word, Lisa acted swiftly, armed with evidence of Brad's continuous misconduct. She presented an unassailable case to the company's higher-ups. Brad's bravado quickly evaporated under the scrutiny, and soon he faced disciplinary action. One afternoon, Lisa invited me to her office. She looked triumphant. Vivian, everything's in motion. Brad's been officially demoted. He's on thin ice now. I felt a strange mix of relief and satisfaction. Poetic justice, I murmured, more to myself than to Lisa. As the news of Brad's downfall spread, he became a pariah at work. Julia called me in the middle of the night, her voice barely above a whisper. Vivian, Brad came home drunk and furious, blaming everyone but himself. Stay safe, Julia. I urged her. Call the police if you need to. Don't let him intimidate you. I won't, she replied, her voice steadier. Thanks for everything. I feel stronger knowing I'm not alone. In the following days, Brad's desperation drove him to more foolish decisions. His work performance plummeted, and his colleagues distanced themselves. I received updates from Lisa, each one detailing a new level of isolation for Brad. One day, I received a message from Lisa that made me smile. Brad's under investigation for harassment. He crossed too many lines. Julia's divorce proceedings went smoothly, largely thanks to her lawyer's sharp strategy. Brad's erratic behavior only strengthened her case, and she was granted full custody of their unborn child. During one of our late-night conversations, Julia sighed deeply. I can't believe it's almost over. I feel like I can breathe again. So do I admitted. And you're going to be a fantastic mom, Julia. You're stronger than you know. With Brad's ruin complete, I finally felt a profound sense of closure. His toxic influence was fading from our lives, replaced by hope and solidarity. One evening, as Alex and I sat on the porch watching the sunset, he took my hand. You've come so far, Vivian. I'm so proud of you. I smiled, feeling the weight of those words. We both have, I said, and I'm ready for whatever comes next. As we walked home hand in hand, I knew that we had truly left the past behind. Peter's giggles filled the air, each one a reminder of new beginnings and the incredible journey ahead. Our lives, woven together by love and resilience, stood as a testament to the strength that comes from never giving up. In the quiet of our home, surrounded by the warmth of family, I realized that in overcoming the shadows of our past, we had found a future more beautiful than we had ever imagined.